Okay, so we'll talk about this first. We are just starting, guys. So it says, the family of John George are planning to return to Spain in a bid to force a breakthrough in his murder probe. 2 months after the Belfast man was shot, stabbed and dumped on Isolated Road, the suspected killer and his accomplice remain on the run. His father, Billy George, said while he vowed never to set foot in that country again, he feels he has to return in order to secure justice for his son. I feel like we need to go back and say that's what we plan to do. His mother, Sharon, said the family are living in nightmares. They struggle to come to terms with their loss. Mr. George, a father of two, vanished after arriving in Alicante region in December. An autopsy has placed the time of his death just hours after his father last spoke to him on December the 14th. 37-year-old's phone messages were last checked at 8:07 p.m. that day. I want to get some more lemonade. So, was it shocking this family has to do? It is shocking. It's really shocking. Just turn that bit off. Okay, so we did know this. We did know that. So the guess of time is that sometime in between 8:20 and 10 o'clock that night, things happened and John George's life was lost. So we do have that kind of time frame. We know he last checked his messages at 8:07. We know that the last message was to a friend, and we know in that last message there was, I don't know if I can say it or not, but there was a acknowledgement of the fact that he didn't know who to trust, that things were changing. So I'll just say it like that. So an autopsy estimates the time of his death between 9:30 and 11:30 that day. So then say they've changed the time frame a little bit. So we obviously, that would be Spanish time though, wouldn't it? The family also learned that he had been stripped naked and stabbed in the legs to disable him before being shot. So again, we have stabbed in the legs this time, not just one leg, but in the legs, to disable him before being shot. So we don't know, and I have asked the question because I know people have asked me how many times he was stabbed, and we don't know how many times he was stabbed. I would imagine there is a certain way in the military that they have a certain place in the back of the leg where they can stab you and it stops you being able to run, walk, any of those things. And we imagine because of Michael Malley's military background, that is where John George was stabbed. However, that will not come out until a certain point, I imagine. A second man, Michael Malley, originally from the Czech Republic, is currently on bail in Spain, suspected of being an accomplice in murder. Malley, a former soldier who served in the Foreign Legion, is said to be cooperating with Spanish police and providing information that led to the recovery of Mr. George's body. Now, that's not the exact story I've been told about how his body was recovered. However, we believe Michael Malley would have pointed to the general direction. Yeah. So, arrest warrants have been issued for alleged killer who is being sought by Spanish police with the assistance of Interpol. We know that's Johnny Smith. He is travelling with an accomplice, Madison. The PSNI is investigating Spanish police with its investigation. It's assisting, A third associate who was helping tie properties for the alleged killer to be used in the grow houses for the cultivation of the cannabis has since fled to Thailand. So the third association has also gone to Thailand. Okay, that's weird to me. Okay, but that's good. More information is coming out. I think this new information that Alison Morrison's put in this report is what's needed to keep the case in the media and to keep the case in the public domain. 2 months on from the loss of their son, Mr. George's parents say they're increasingly frustrated at the slow pace of the investigation, and they really are. They really are frustrated. They are broken. They don't know what's coming. They're constantly asking, like, what's going to happen next? Like, I spoke to Billy the other day. He said to me, like, Hayley, why have they not got anyone yet? I said, I just don't know. We know Madison and Johnny are logging in and out of Instagram. Why aren't you tracking that? Why don't you just go to Instagram and get a location of where they've logged into? There's so many different things that could be done in this case very quickly, but they're not being done. So why? Speaking to the newspaper, Billy George said, if we hadn't gone to Spain to search for John, we would never have got his body back. I'm sure of that, and I am too. He would have just been another missing person. I said, when I stepped off the plane back home, I would not be back in Spain, but I didn't expect to be here 2 months later still waiting on the killer being arrested or any kind of answers. Hundreds of people visited the George family to pay their respects for the wake. Because John George had been missing for 3 weeks, his body was recovered on January the 7th, and it was unable to have a open coffin because of the damage that's been done to his body and the length of time in the elements. Instead, it was surrounded by pictures, medals and trophies from the successful boxing career the young John George had enjoyed as an amateur. Sharon George says she's been living in a nightmare for the last 9 weeks, and you really truly can't understand the pain of a mother, can you, in this situation? Like, John George is her firstborn. He's a bit like, he's still going to always be her baby. I think perhaps sometimes, and I think I'm guilty of it as well, Billy was like the head of the family out in the media, and he was the one that spoke and did all those things. So kind of Sharon has got lost in the story a tiny bit because Billy's kind of like outspoken and all of those things. But I'd like, you really have to pay homage to a mother who absolutely has just been so hurt, and you know, she was searching too. She's got other children, so she's got to be strong for them. Like, it's just a nightmare, and every little detail that comes out, like, oh, he was stabbed in the leg so he couldn't run, so they could shoot him, and all of those things. He was found stripped naked. Like, what that's got to be doing to her is so horrific. It said, there are times when I think, did this really happen? I still think John's going to come through the door all smiles. We've got him home and we were able to give him a proper burial, but I never got to see my son. His coffin was closed and I never got to see his face to tell him how much I love him. I had been to his flat and cleaned it for him coming back to Spain, but he never come back to see it. He was taken for us and his children, and it's so hard to believe. She said the community support means a lot to us. The family are very open about their son. Is my phone charging? Yeah. The family are very open about their son's struggles. A dedicated boxer and fitness fanatic, that was altered when he turned 16 and formed a friendship with a different crowd of friends and ended up in a young offenders institute. When he was released from prison, he had formed an addiction to prescription medication and became friends with more seasoned criminals. Sharon George said that despite her son's struggles, he always had his family support, and that's why the alarm was raised so quickly when he stopped communicating after December the 14th. She said, my John would never even swear in front of me. He knew I would never have condoned anything he did wrong, but he also knew if he was stranded, we would always got him home. I think his killers thought our John was going to go over to Spain and be muscle for them, and they could use him, but they had the wrong person if that's what they thought. Billy George added, we have since learned that there was an argument that John left the apartment. He believed his son went to stay stay elsewhere, but left his passport and belongings behind. Sharon George added, he needed to get them back to get a flight home. He would never have missed Christmas with his children. He already had their presents sorted before he went away. The family were told by one of the suspects that Mr. George had lost his phone, but he booked a flight home on December the 18th. They have since learned the flight was booked after his murder and done so to delay the family raising the alarm. His father flew to Spain for one day on December the 20th to make an official missing persons report. Along with his family, they returned after Christmas running a high-profile search campaign.
Mum, in a minute I'm going to go in the shower and I got my scooter.
Duncan Smith keeps throwing at Billy as something really suspicious, and he's trying to tie Billy George into the crime based on this one day of travel. Okay, so the one day of travel was to go over to Alicante and file a missing persons report to start things happening, and then he'd come back home to be with his other children and grandchildren for Christmas so they could get money together as a family and go over and search. Now, what good was it be a Billy staying over there searching by himself on his lonesome with no vehicle, no money, no preparation, no nothing? So instead of making it look like it's really weird, we believe it was Madison Newby who booked the flight. Instead of making it look like it was really weird or suspicious, try to understand, like, that this dad went straight out there. You know, he went over there straight away as soon as he could to file this missing persons report. Then he actually thought as a family when he's that, yes, why he went out there for a day to file a missing persons report. So when Duncan Smith's trying to make it sound like Billy went out there to do something and then came back and then went out there later, like, it's mad. Like, he went straight over there as soon as he could to, she's like, can I go out on the streets? I'm like, no, you can't. Body was left, his mother said, for my own peace of mind, I need to see it. And so if you remember correctly, when the family were out there, they were told the wrong place. And so they laid flowers at the wrong place, and now they know the real place. And obviously for a family, you're going to want to be there. You're going to want to go out there and be where John was last. You are going to. It's so that's the article, and that's the kind of news. Thank you, Anne. Thank you, Amanda. I have spoke to Courtney this morning. She said there's no immediate plans to go straight there right now, but they are feeling like if things don't change in the next couple of days, then they're going to have to start planning to do something. And it's one of those situations where you're waiting and you're waiting and you're waiting and you're waiting, and if nothing's happening, thank you guys, you're going to start thinking we need to be proactive. We can't just sit here anymore. We can't wait for the phone, wait for text. Like, we need to be somewhere doing something, and you can't blame them at all. No. We're 2 months down the line and there's not been anything. There's been nothing, and you know, for the family it's frustrating. It's so you know, and I don't know how the family would feel about that, but I think a private investigator is what they need. I think a really good private investigator maybe the next step forward, because the private investigator, even if they're doing their own investigation, would be able to give information to the family and at least keep them updated that something's kind of being done. Do you know what I mean? Why should I I spoke to Courtney this morning, but Dan McMeekin is trying to reach out to Duncan Smith to speak to him and help him. So I think, what a fucking idiot, man. And you know, he knows because he's seen Duncan's videos that Duncan is very anti-George, that he doesn't like the family, he doesn't like John, he's only really supporting Dawn in the comments, but he's decided to contact, he's in several of his video comments saying, please contact me, it's Dan McMeekin, I want to speak to you. No, I'm not joking. So I just think it's so fucking dangerous when you're doing shit like that, because I think it tells us more than anything, I think it tells us that Dan McMeekin has been playing both sides all along. Because how did he know to go over to Duncan Smith to reach out unless Dawn has told him to do so?